My wish is that our young men, young women of every ethnicity can look to leaders, lawyers, leaders in different professions and say, okay, I'm going to find that path. I don't care what's in front of me. I'm going to break through that barrier and I'm going to pursue my dream, wherever it is and whatever it is.
Thanks for tuning in to Keep It Legal, the show where we break down concepts, litigation, and current events with our legal experts. I'm your host, Mark Anik. Joining us today is Justice Eva Guzman of Wright, Close, and Barger in Houston. Justice Guzman, thank you so much for joining us.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me to chat today. Appreciate it.
I have to tell you, this is a big thrill for all of us. For me, our producer, Alyssa Wolf, our, I guess, executive producer, we'd call her April Arias. Ever since you joined the firm, we've been saying we need to chat with Justice Guzman. So I appreciate you talking to us this morning.
Well, you're kind to say that. Thank you.
I have in front of me a copy of the speech that you made this year to the graduates at UT Law School. And there's a line in here, and a thematic line, really, throughout your speech. You talk to those students about being ready to write their own stories. And I want to begin with your story, with where you are today at Wright, Close, and Barger. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing now that you're back in the land of private legal practice?
Certainly, after 22 years on the bench, I had a decision to make, and what next? So as I looked at the different law firms that had reached out and what I wanted to see in this next phase, in this next season, Wright, Close, and Barger came to the forefront in my mind because they're just a top tier appellate boutique. We have a litigation section, but the firm is known for its appellate expertise, for the caliber of the lawyers that practice here. Tom Wright appeared in front of me many times, and he is just one of the best advocates in the country, really, certainly in our state. And so it was an easy choice for me to join a firm that where the pillars and the cornerstones of what they value in the practice of law aligned with mine, and that's excellence, advocacy on behalf of our clients, and also understanding that our role as lawyers goes well beyond the courtroom.
Talk to me about that. What do you mean when you say your role goes well beyond the courtroom?
Well, the one that people understand is how we serve our clients. We give our clients 150%, but beyond that, it's how we serve the community, the greater community. And for me, it's always been a mission, a passion to give back. I've had focused primarily on children and in the child welfare system over the course of my career. But at Wright, Close, and Barger, the firm has a number of ways it gives back, whether it's supporting access to justice programs, pro bono, being very supportive in terms of continuing legal education. And we even have an online mentor at the firm, Rafi Malconian, who is known as the Dean of Appellate Twitter. But what's unique about Rafi, and I'd known about Rafi before I joined the firm, is his willingness to share that great intellect and expertise that he brings. He argued before the United States Supreme Court and shared his experience and his tips on Twitter. And so that really is a way to improve our profession.
I had a chance years ago to work with an attorney who was in private practice, and then he took the bench at the district court level and now is in an appellate court. And I said, what's it like to be the judge? And he said, it's great. People call you judge. They laugh at your jokes now where perhaps they didn't in the past. What is it like for you, someone who was on the bench at the district court, appellate court, and Supreme Court of Texas? What is it like to make that shift, to go from those positions back into private practice now?
It's been incredibly interesting, challenging at times. I, as a judge and a justice on our state's highest court, just never lost sight of the fact that that job is a public service job, that we're there to fulfill a role, and that at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about the justice system. And so, yeah, I had 22 years of folks laughing at my jokes, and, no matter what you say, oh, that's hilarious, Judge. Well, no, it's not. Here we are. I'm not really missing that aspect of it. And when I go into the courtroom, I want to help the judge. Like, I understand how judges think. When I went back to Duke for my LLM, my thesis was on judicial decision making. And that's a difficult thing. So, my role as an advocate, when I go back into the courtroom, I'm not coming back as, oh, I'm Eva Guzman and, I used to grade your papers and I know it all. I'm coming back as, Judge, what can I do to make your job easier, to help you understand the facts of this case, and from my perspective, what the law is. And so I've enjoyed it. It's different. I sometimes have to remember, hey, wait, you're not the judge. Sit down. But it's been a lot of fun, and people treat me well. And never forget when you're at the top, that things could change, and so you've got to treat people well. And I would say that whether you're a managing partner, a current sitting judge, you never know when things are going to change by choice or otherwise. So show some grace. You'll need it when you're in a different place.
You're someone for whom ethics matter. When I read what you've written or where you've been quoted, you've talked about ethics again and again. How do you just mentioned that when you're in court, you're trying to advocate for your client now, and you're trying to provide to them an understanding of how the court is going to process this matter. What's the ethical line there that you can go up to but not cross?
For any advocate, the crossing ethical lines should never cross your own mind. How far can I push this argument? But I think you have to be a strong advocate. And if you're advocating for a change in the law, then tell the Judge, this case is not exactly clear, but here's why you should take this case and apply it in this way. But I think that you can't undo the bad impression when you are not candid with the judge about the facts or the law. You can't undo it. And I've seen it over the years where lawyers come in and, whether accidentally or intentionally, forget to mention a key case or forget to mention, a particular fact on which the outcome would turn. Judges are probably going to find it, and it's tough to undo the damage that you've done to your reputation. And as I was always told growing up, you only have one reputation. That's it.
And the point you make is wise. It occurs to me that trial lawyers would say in front of jurors, if you know there's a bad fact, be the one to tell the jury about the bad fact. You're, in essence, saying do the same thing vis-a-vis the court.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing I was taught as a young lawyer is get out in front of those bad facts, deal with them. Don't let the other side shape that narrative. You shape it, the best way that you can within every ethical boundary that would apply.
When you left the court or announced that you would be leaving the Supreme Court of Texas, a Texas lawyer went out and spoke with attorneys who had practiced in front of you. One of them is a gentleman named David Cole, who's a friend of this podcast and, in fact, has been a guest on it before. And he said this, I'm quoting, "She comes well prepared and she comes well armed. She brought a lot of enthusiasm for it, and you don't see that every day. That is going to be missed." That's extremely high praise.
I so appreciate that, and I humbled by those words, but I did always try to come to court prepared. If you think about an appellate argument, the lawyers have put in hundreds of hours to get ready. Their clients have high expectations. what they really want is a judge who's read it, who's prepared to engage with the difficult questions, and who will write an opinion that's well reasoned and that is the product of much thought. And so I came to the bench prepared, and it was just a commitment I made to be that way. And in terms of the enthusiasm, well, I can't help my Latina-ness. I was always very passionate. I still am. I'm just passionate about things I love, and I loved being a Supreme Court justice. I just loved it.
Well, and I imagine people looking at you from a distance would say your passion is what makes you good at what you do.
Thank you. I hope it contributes in some way because I'm not losing it, apparently.
I want to talk about something you, in the 20 years or so that I've worked doing my job in public relations, you're the second Supreme Court justice, the Texas Supreme Court, that I've had the opportunity to speak with. The other one, also a woman, Deborah Hankinson. There are 3 women Supreme Court justices on the bench today, as you know, in the Texas Supreme Court. I'm old enough that I remember when Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, appointed Sandra Day O'Connor, and that was a big, big event. What do you think is the next big event? What's the next milestone along those lines?
So for me, the next milestone would be when we don't have all of these first, when we have opened enough doors, broken enough glass ceilings, uh, cut through all of the, the barriers that stop women, particularly women of color, Latinas, from having a seat at the table. So that's the next milestone when it's not a thing anymore because we're there.
You're getting to one of the questions that I was thinking of is, and I've interviewed other people, women lawyers who are African American, and we've talked about the same thing. When will people no longer notice? When will it be normal? Do you think Justice Guzman will get to that point at some point in time?
I'm a hopeful person. I do, but I think getting there requires a very collaborative and concerted effort to mentor that next generation. And I'm talking beginning with our children and continuing through young lawyers. If you're someone who's accomplished a particular uh, role, if you're someone who's in decision making, you can make that difference. Decision makers, if you're the one doing the appointing, you don't have to lower your criteria. There are plenty of qualified Hispanics and African Americans and Asians and every other category that we'd like to see in our public offices.
And yet things such as what I'm going to describe or you've described still happen. You're quoted in an article I have here from 2019 saying, "This evening I was once again told, you don't look like a judge." It was a story about other female jurists talking about how people, what impressions they draw from them. Does that sort of thing still happen? Is it a barrier to progress?
So I think people should be more mindful of those sorts of assumptions. We all make assumptions. Let's face it. It's not whites making assumptions about others. We all make assumptions, and we all bring our own internal bias or compass to the equation. But when I was a young judge, my first day on the bench, I was in the back hallway, and a gentleman, a lawyer, came up to me and said, "Young lady, make these copies. That new judge wants copies of all the exhibits." So I decided to have a little fun. I said, "Sure, sir, I'll do that." And I walked out for the first time, and he was there, and the bailiff says, "All rise." You should have seen the look on his face. But I said nothing else to him. In fact, I introduced myself afterward, and but he did. He saw me in the back hallway and just decided that, even though I was all dressed up and looked like a lawyer, he decided that my role was something else.
More than once, you've spoken about the need for people to see the courts as being credible and responsible. And I believe, the story that I read about you, you were talking about those things in 2016. That was 7 years ago. An awful lot of water has passed under the dam or over the dam since then. What do you think about the state of our courts and how we as citizens view the courts?
Yeah, so I think it's um, very important that our citizens have trust in the justice system. Unfortunately, survey after survey reveals that people don't trust the justice system. And so that's not good for our country. That really undermines our foundational rule of law commitment as a country. So I would say for those of us in the legal profession, it is important, it is critical that we find ways to re engage the public in ways that will help them develop more trust in the justice system. And I think social media has played a role in that. Certainly, the incivility in Congress, and certainly the tone of the rhetoric. People begin to mistrust the justice system. You've got politicians in Texas, one in particular, who's decided that he is going to publicly attack justices because they made decisions that he didn't agree with. Well, I'd like to tell him that's not how this all works. We have a constitution that every judge has sworn to uphold. We have checks and balances, and there are ways to address decisions one might disagree with, but public rants about our court system does nothing to advance the interest of justice in our state.
You mentioned politics, so I want to talk about that, if I may, a little bit. You're someone who has run for office twice, statewide, the first Latina to win statewide and hold statewide public office twice. You left the bench and later ran for the Republican nomination for Attorney General in a four-way race. It was you, Representative Gomert, George P. Bush, and the incumbent Ken Paxton. The San Antonio Express-News called you the adult in the room, which I thought was cute. And yet, you were not able to get to the point where you were in the runoff. And plenty of people, papers, the Houston Chronicle, the Morning News, I don't need to tell you, you know this better than I do, endorsed you. What does it say about the state of our politics that campaign was not successful?
Well, that's a risk you take going in, right? I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to be strategic. I'm going to think about everything that could come my way. I'm going to bring, high energy to the process. I'm going to recruit supporters, network, be transparent. And you can do all of that. And you can do all of that right. And there may be a last minute play that makes a difference. And so I'm not bitter. I love politics. I love my voters. I've run many, many races as a judge, and just like everyone knew this about me. No one campaigns like Eva Guzman because she loves the trail. I did love the campaign trail. I was disheartened by the negative ad that the two candidates that did make the runoff ran against me, spending the weekend before the election day vote attacking me, and just wasn't enough time to respond. But that's politics. Had I run more visible statewide races in the past, maybe it wouldn't have been successful. Had that they not engaged a topic motivated by race, they might not have been successful. But I don't blame our voters. They get information, they process it. I have spent some time since the campaign getting my message out, uh, getting the truth out, and just for the sake of the truth.
There was talk in the midst of the impeachment process with the Attorney General that if he were convicted, if the Senate were to vote to convict, your name came up as someone whom the governor might possibly appoint. Do you have any thoughts on that, or did you have any thoughts on that at the time?
No, I stayed out of I didn't know that impeachment was coming. Didn't follow it. Stayed out of it. Never spoke with anyone, and about potential appointments. I do know that public service is in my heart. I know that when I did run for attorney general, I ran on my record, my experience, the integrity that I would bring to the bench, and my love for the people of Texas and my conservative values, that what I was willing to fight for. So yeah, I'm still that same person, and that's what I brought to the table. And I was really honored. You mentioned Congressman Gomer, and early on, he publicly said, if Eva wins and makes the runoff, I'm going to support her. And to me, that said something, because he met me on the campaign trail. I didn't know him. And he began to listen to what I had to say and what I stood for. And he made a decision that he would support me. And given that he's known as one of the most conservative members of Congress, and even though we were running against each other, there was a very healthy respect there. In fact, once during the campaign trail, I said something about, being in Congress for 17 years and then coming back. And so afterward, my husband says, "Why are you picking on Louis? Leave him alone." So we really, really just grew to respect that he was running for his own reasons, and that at his core, he loves Texas, the way we do.
There are people who look at the state of the Republican Party and would say, well, Justice Guzman is an example of, quote unquote, an establishment Republican, okay? That's not my term, it's one that people have coined, right? But it makes the point. And then they would look at Representative Gomert and say he's far, far more conservative. The fact that you two were able to get along as you describe makes me wonder, is there a way to bridge that gap within the party?
I don't even know what this establishment candidate and this rhino business, that's just new ways to attack otherwise really good, solid political opponents. When they have nothing else to say about you, they will make up a lie or call you a rhino. Um, it's silly. I have been a strong voice in the Republican Party for conservative values, for growing the party. I've given more Lincoln Day keynote speeches than anyone else in this party. And before I decided to run for a non judicial office, I had the endorsement of many of those folks launching those sorts of critiques. I didn't change, they did.
When you talk about running for office, I can hear and see the passion in you. And you speak of having a love for politics and the campaign trail. So the natural question, Justice Guzman, is, are you done?
Are you done? I am not done loving Texas, and I am not done trying to be a voice for good conservative policy, whether I do it as a lawyer or whether someday, I decide to enter the arena again. I don't know, but I'm also a person of faith, and I don't think anything happens in my life without somehow, that higher power saying, you know what, it's okay. I'm gonna permit you to cross that road, and I'm gonna be there no matter what happens. And so we'll see. We'll see. Never say never.
Some would say that's a bit of a political answer, but I'll let you get away with that because it's also a
It's a
good one.
lawyer answer.
It's a
I'd say it's a
lawyer.
lawyer answer. Yeah.
I want to talk about your Hispanic heritage. We're having this discussion at the close of Hispanic Heritage Month. Again, you were the first Latina on the Supreme Court of Texas. Can you talk to me a little bit about your own story, the story of your folks and your family, if you wish?
Yeah, I you know, am very proud of my Hispanic heritage. I always said that I bleed red, white, and blue because we love this country so much. And I think it's because of our experience. So my parents immigrated from Mexico, and they did so at a time when immigration was different. They were able to come over legally, and they never looked back. And they loved their family in Mexico. They loved our Hispanic or Mexican culture and foods, but they never looked back. They embraced the United States of America, the American dream. They had elementary school educations. I have no idea how they knew what they didn't know, and how they were able to encourage all seven of their children to graduate from college and to go on to more advanced roles. So I'm a first generation American. They became citizens in the 70s, and that was a really proud day for them. And they taught themselves to speak English as best as they could. And they read the newspaper. They taught themselves to read English. And honestly, I think taught themselves to read, period. So they're my heroes. And we grew up in a home full of love, not a lot of money, but like a lot of people, we really didn't know what we were missing. We thought everybody lived this way. So,
You were seated on the Supreme Court of Texas, highest legal bench in the land in Texas, correct? But you started at a more humble job. You talked about working at a drapery factory. Can you tell me about that?
wow, that was a long time ago. Um, it's true. So I grew up in a very close knit neighborhood. I called it the Barrio, but it's nice neighborhood. And my cousins lived next door, and the aunt lived a little bit farther away, and that sort of thing. And they were all working at a drapery factory, and they were older than me. And of course, we didn't have much money at all growing up. And so I went to my parents and I said, well, I'm going to go to the factory and I'm going to see if they'll hire me. And they're like, what? And I said, yep, I'm going with my cousin Blanca. So there I go. And they thought I was 16. I was barely a teen, and I thought $1.95 was an amazing wage. And here we go. But it set me on a course for understanding hard work and understanding the value of empowering others no matter where you are.
You have a daughter. I have two. When you see them accomplish things, it can bring a tear to your eye. I can only imagine your parents seeing you and the things that you accomplished. That had to be a moment for them.
It did. My dad died young, too young, but my mom got to see me appointed to the district court and got to see my siblings graduate from college, and got to see me get appointed to the Court of Appeals. And that was a big event in Houston. And uh, she felt very proud. And I think kind of overwhelmed. And I remember going to Austin, and she met Governor Bush right before he became president. And he spoke Spanish to her. And it was just very moving, very powerful, and it's to me emblematic of the American dream is to be able to come to a country and see your children accomplish things you couldn't even imagine or dream about. I mean, think about it. If you come from that small town in Mexico, Gualahuises, you would not even be able to dream this. And yet somehow they raised us to dream this big.
That is an incredible thing when you think about it, that journey from someone with an elementary school education to their daughter and your siblings succeeding as well. I don't want to leave them out of the discussion. It could make Thanksgiving difficult for you
Yes, that's
around the
right.
table. Is that American dream, in your view, still alive and well?
It's alive. It's not well. And we need to do more to improve a lot of things that make the dream difficult. One of them is, I think, illegal immigration creates an underclass, right? People hide. Their children don't feel free to pursue uh, their own dreams, and so we need to secure our borders. And that's, in my view, that's the politician in me, and that's the American citizen in me. We've got to secure those borders. I also think we need to do a better job of um, creating educational opportunities for our children, whether that means vouchers, more better pay for teachers, better ways to assess, their progress, and find ways to help children learn what they need to learn to succeed. I've not looked at it lately. The court wrote while I was there at least one opinion when the school finance system was challenged in the courts. It's been challenged maybe 7 times. But at that time, I had a chance to look at the statistics, and they're not great for minority students, and we can and should do better. And for first generation Americans, so much is tied to education. It is the key that opens the door. Now, there are other ways, but for many of us, education is that key. It's what allows us to get a seat at the table. I've never forgotten where I came from. When I was appointed to the Texas Supreme Court, Governor Perry asked me, "Where do you want to make the announcement? We could do it here, we could do it there." And I said, "How about Austin High School?" Austin High School? Yes. And so we went back to Austin High School in the East End. And few years later, many years later, a young woman called me and she said, "I was in the library that day and I'm a lawyer now. Will you swear me in?" And
What a thrill.
what a thrill. And just that one day being able to touch, these students, it's worth it.
I imagine that sort of dynamic that you described with that young lady and you having the opportunity to swear her in, that, when I think of Hispanic heritage and I look at you and all you have accomplished, there are young ladies, there are girls who look at you and say, well, she did it. That's a great example for them.
That's the idea. My wish is that our young men, young women of every ethnicity can look to leaders, lawyers, leaders in different professions. I've got a niece who just started medical school at UT. She'll be the first doctor in the family. To be able to look at this and say, okay, I'm going to find that path. I don't care what's in front of me. I'm going to break through that barrier, and I'm going to pursue my dream, wherever it is and whatever it is.
When we talk about Hispanic heritage, are there particular heroes that you have or individuals you looked up to when you were that younger individual trying to get to the top of the ladder?
The the good news for our young people today is that there are many more places to find that inspiration. And for Latinos, there are many Latinos that we can look to be inspired. For me, it was my teachers. Growing up, I went to a predominantly a Hispanic high school, and there were a number of teachers that were my heroes. And when I got into the legal profession, there were already some federal judges and some judges that were Hispanic, and I looked up to them too. So I have personal heroes, and throughout my life, I continue to be inspired by the people that are around me. I just see so much that gives hope to all of us, no matter what we're doing.
And those people are important for all of us, correct? We all need something to shoot for, something that we can say, well, they're showing that you can do it. I can do it too.
They're showing that you can do it, and they're sharing what they know, what they've learned, how they've overcome difficult challenges. And I would encourage anyone listening who is thinking about that next step or thinking about a change to reach out and find a mentor. It can make all the difference.
Do you get that opportunity to mentor from time to time?
I'm very blessed. I do.
Mhm.
I do, and I love it. I love when people come to me and ask me about my experiences, and we can talk about how they might help them navigate whatever it is they're going through.
In the speech that you gave to the students, you talked about writing the next portion of their story, and you told them to be ready to edit and perhaps to take on a plot line that they may not expect. What about you? What's the next portion of the Justice Guzman story?
Well, well, you mentioned my speech at the University of Texas. It was a real honor for me to deliver the convocation address to the students, to that next generation of leaders and lawyers. And I did say, you're always writing that next chapter, but you can't lose sight that today is what's important. So for today, I am very much enjoying the practice of law at Wright, Close, and Barger, the opportunity to be an appellate advocate for our clients at a very high level. This is a bar that's not very diverse. And I put something on LinkedIn. If you're a former state high court justice who's back, in the legal sphere in a different way, reach out. And there aren't many former Latina Supreme Court justices, and certainly not many that are practicing law. So I am really enjoying bringing that unique insight, perspective, experience, and critical skill set to this work. That said, I will evaluate every opportunity that presents itself. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the people around us who love us and want to see us living our best lives.
Justice Eva Guzman, thank you so much for joining us today.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
Again, that was Justice Eva Guzman with Wright, Close, and Barger in Houston. You can visit wrightclosebarger.com for more information about the firm. That's WRIGHT, Close, Barger, BARGER.com. Make sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tune in next time to Keep It Legal. I'm your host, Mark Anik. We'll see you then.